Jesus is a bad guy. We've met Mommy. And my God, the separation of teams and join teams is wild in this game. It is wild. It is wild. It's unbelievable. And of course, Zhao has returned, along with bin bag hero Jungi-han. They're all back. Everybody's back. You know, it's such a game that gets the snowball of this game rolls in the latter half so much faster, because there's a realization that comes with playing Infinite Wealth, which I think is actually at odds a little bit with what people maybe expected. And I say that because I'm always happy to talk about these things, is as we've got, like, the first half of the game, we noticed a distinct drop in, like, viewership. If we was interested in the game, like, people are like, oh, I like stream, but I'm not into this game and it takes a long time. Now, I understand that because it's not as wild and wacky as the first one. I don't think it's as loved, and I've been, like, pondering, like, I've been really like, what is it about this game? Same characters, in fact, identical characters, and lots of references to the first game. Side characters, all kinds of things. What's different here that makes it less of a Yakuza game that people are like, oh, I can't wait for this bit, right? That's a lot of what streaming is when you do a lot of games like this. It's like, I can't wait for this bit. Because it's not a game that I can do something particularly insane with stream-wise, like we're going to do on Halloween starting on Monday, is that it's a lot of story. It's a lot of cutscenes. Like, literally tens and tens of hours of story and cutscene in here. I've said so many times, I'd love to see the script for these games. One of the realizations you have is that it's much more grounded in general. Like, the main story is way more grounded. Like, the main story generally in the first game is more grounded than the side quests, and that's true here too. But it also contained absolute absurd wackiness that doesn't exist in the first, like, 40 hours of the game. Like, it's much more serious, gory, brutal. And now I've done, like, I'm deep into the latter half approaching the end. Now the wackiness is sort of there, but it's more tongue-in-cheek. Like, we had a repeat of the crane fight yesterday. And I did bring up, it's like, we had, like, Bleach Japan and the crane fight reasonably early on in the other game, but that hasn't happened here. We had Ichiban staying in, like, a whorehouse, you know, cleaning up jizz tissues. All that kind of stuff was happening in the main story, and it's not really happening over here. I think that's part of it. But there's another realization I've had now. We're deep into the second half. And now, and I just said then, the snowball is rolling much more vigorously. Now things are picking up. There's a lot of things happening. So two things. One, there's not a great villain in this game, and it's really sad. We've got some fantastic characters. We've got Dwight, played by Danny Trejo. Great, but only makes a very brief cameo and then disappears, and he's just started to reappear at the very end of the game. But other than that, he's there. We have Abina, but Abina only appears for the first, like, 5 minutes of the game. He's in that very small section and disappears because he's not involved in Hawaii until late game. Again, the snowball picking up. And now we have Bryce, who is the leader of the cult. He's manipulating and doing rituals, who's now got child killers and stuff. Again, in the later start of the game. Like, we're missing that villain. We don't have somebody who's like, oh, I hate that guy, like we had with Bleach Japan. Bleach Japan was fantastic in the first game because you just hated those dickheads. They were awful. They were just the worst. The absolute worst. And also Young Master, who does do the disappearing acts and reappearing acts, but it's early enough that you're aware of it. And then we've got the evil police captain as well, wrestling with Adachi. We had all these little elements of people we really disliked. Didn't really have that in this one. Like, they come and go more than anything, or they appear in cutscenes. You don't really fight them. The best character who fits that description, for the most part, was Yamai. But Yamai is kind of funny. He's kind of a funny character. He's got an absurd gravelly voice. He's always getting his butt kicked. And he just keeps showing him. He's got this, like, Emperor Palpatine style approach to his existence. So he's kind of goofy. And now he's, like, on our side somewhat. He's like the enemy of my enemy. So we're working together in a lot of ways. But in the latter half, this is still the first point of the two. We now have somebody we really dislike. And it's A-chan, the guy in the wheelchair from earlier in the game, who is actually working for Bryce and has been manipulating and pulling strings and blackmailing Chitose who turns out to be the VTuber, which was a little disappointing. We were kind of hoping it would be various other people would be the VTuber, but it turns out it is Chitose, and he's been pulling the strings for a long time and blackmailing her because he wrote the scripts and whatever for the VTuber. All that kind of stuff has been going on. So, and he can actually walk, and he's a real piece of crap. Like, we really hate this guy. He's played so well. I don't know if Bex can find it in the edit of this, but there's a scene after we go and try and rescue Lani. She's been captured after the bloodbath. And we're in a nightclub, and we're on some stairs, and they have Lani in a wheelchair. And he's about to throw her down the stairs with, like, what appears to be a grenade that's going on. And what's really interesting about this is there's a scene where he, like, pans to camera. And I believe this is one of those scenes that I suspect was shot or was edited camera-wise after the actor delivered the line, because it is so insanely creepy, and he's so smug, and he's so arrogant. I was like, that's the villain I've been looking for. I really hate this guy. That Bleach Japan style leader who's just a jerk, and I hate him so much. And that's really good. So that's point one. We don't get a really good villain until pretty late in the game. For me, anyway. The second point, and I think this might be a big conflict for a lot of people, this is not Ichiban's game. The Like a Dragon series, as far as I understand it, was the end, because Kiryu's story was at an end. They were like, we've done like 7 or 8 or 34 games with him. And now we're passing the torch to a new main character, which will be Ichiban, who's going to be similar but very different in their approach. This wild, this naive puppy that when lets off the leash is a wild bulldog, right? But will always err towards the right, the correct and the pure and the honest. He's honest to a T, right? He sees the good in everything. And the end of Kiryu's story. And we actually see that in Like a Dragon. The first one is that Kiryu does show up, and we have a showdown where he passes the torch, essentially, to Ichiban. This is your game now. Go forth and conquer, right? This is Kiryu's game. Like a Dragon at Infinite Wealth is Kiryu's game. It's not Ichiban's game. And you don't realize it because you start with Ichiban, and then Kiryu joins you, and you're like, oh, okay, Kiryu's back. Cool. People like Kiryu. Obviously, he's been the main star of the Yakuza series for a long time. And the more and more you play, the more the story shifts way away from Ichiban. Ichiban's got a story with his mother, but it shifts over to being Kiryu's video game. He's the star once again. And it's done very well, but it's done in a nostalgic way. And we're still on the fence, or at least I'm on the fence, because I don't know as whether he's actually going to die, because he's got cancer. It turns out all the stuff with the Yakuza in Japan with Ibina may have been a direct result of that, because he had to move nuclear waste, and now we realize that the big overall story is that Japan is going to offload its nuclear waste to Hawaii, facilitated by Bryce, who's going to allow them to dump it on one of Hawaii's islands, saving them a bunch of costs and not having to deal with, radioactive waste. And that's how Kiryu got cancer. And then the story switches away from what Ichiban is doing pretty heavily into all the memories of Kiryu, where a lot of the characters from the previous Yakuza games all show up. He meets like his karate master, or his training master. Now, obviously, I didn't play a lot of the older Yakuza games, so it doesn't hit home for me. But there's an entire half of the game, which is now becoming more than half of the game, which is explore all the memories that Kiryu has, maybe in Kamurocho or whatever. Meet all these characters, lots of side story with Date, who's going to show you like kids that you met along the way who are now grown up. This guy ran the taxi service. These were 2 people who helped you run a bar. All these and you're going to have these relentless stories that are going on, and it just totally sort of abandons whatever Ichiban is doing. And more than that, their gameplay is way more fun, and that's what got me really thinking about it. Because Ichiban's stuff is basically like a dragon in a different area. It's got side quests. It has some stuff that's relatively tedious and just not quite as good. So the cans replacement is the pizza delivery replacement. It's much more involved and less simplistic than cans, where you can just min-max and have fun. It's got little frustrations. This one's more like spammy and really locked in. So I found that less fun. Photographing degenerates on trolleys, Pokemon Snap. Yes, I get the reference. It's just not quite as fun. Making friends with everybody and carrying resources to do that is sort of stopping you every little while if you're invested in doing that, which I have been. We talked about the island. It's much. A lot of Ichiban's content is much more invested, time-wise and focus-wise. Like business was, you could AFK a lot of it, and just sort of make little decisions and let it run with a nice flashy cutscene, and then you were on to the next thing and you were making money. The island requires you to run around. You've got all these days to kill. You've got to do a certain amount of stuff per day. Much more lengthy, much more time investment. But then you get over to Kiryu's stuff, which is like, oh, it's all just laid out for you. Like, if you're walking on the street, there'll be part-time hero, and there'll be memories, and they're also going to be the next to, like, gold chests and stuff. So you're going to get a lot of loot. So I think that stark contrast is possibly why this game is really good. Like, this might sound like complaints, and I don't want it to sound like that, because I really enjoy it. And I played offline. We need to finish the story up anyway, because we're moving on to Halloween, and we've got Final Fantasy 14 Day on Friday with the live letter, and I'm doing the tour guide stuff. So we want to finish the story next time, and then come back and play some other stuff, like Sujimon and things like that. But I was playing for a couple of hours last night, and I just had a lot of fun. Did a dungeon, picked up a lot of Kiryu stuff, like knocked them out the park, got some really great wards from it, like super power-ups and counterattacks and things like that. And I was like, this is just better than in what they gave to Ichiban. And the game has tilted towards Kiryu heavily. And I do wonder what the outcome of that is going to be. Are they killing him off? Does it matter? Are they going to find a solution to cancer via violence or something? I don't know. I don't know where it's going. But it's been a very interesting journey, because I know I brought up Yakuza 0, which is something my team's been talking about. Is like, we need to do Yakuza 0 at some point. Like, that is the pinnacle. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. But, we take a break between each of these things and come back to it later, because, like, Guild Wars 2's expansion's out. There's Halloween week I want to do. We've got Terraria coming up, all these kind of things. So we'll see where it goes from there. But I'd love to see your thoughts, actually. That's more interesting to me. Is what do you think? Am I off base here? But it's what I'm seeing from the game. It's like, oh, this isn't even Ichiban's game. It's only the second in the Like a Dragon series, as far as I know. But it's not Ichi's game. It's Kiryu's game. Is this a send-off for him? No idea. We'll see. All right. So some food for thought for you guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.